What's up? Glad to be back. And today I am doing a uh, I'm doing a quick lecture on one of my favorite topics, one of my absolute favorite topics to bring to you, and that is homesteading. Where to even start, how to do it, what it should cost, all of that. Now, I don't want it to be too long because I can sit here and I can do literally an 8 hour uh, lecture on homesteading. It's just one of my favorite things on the planet. So, I'm going to try to get straight into it. Uh, can we trust society? Go ahead, think about it. Can we trust society? Can we trust the food industry, the medicine industry? We see the riots, food shortages, inflation, laws passing, laws disintegrating, and from the economy to the job market to the housing market. You know, uh, uh, it's very difficult to be able to trust to say that we can rest assured that our government, that our society is insured the way that they try to portray that it is. And we saw a lot of this, when COVID broke out. Um, so when it comes to how much does a house cost, let's say a 25-year-old house, it's in fair condition, it's in a pretty fair location, it's private, but it's still close to regular stores and schools and things of that nature. We're going to call it, say, $200,000. $200,000 investment. Now, wow, that's a lot of money. Okay, that's almost a quarter M bar. Okay, that's a lot of money. And a lot of time that it's going to take to pay that off. Not counting in that meantime, let's say you do a 20-year gig on it where you plan to pay it off in the next 20 years. Well, okay, that sounds good, right? 20 years, okay, but let's add to that number, that $200,000 number, the interest, the taxes, and 20 years of utilities. And that's not even talking about 20 years of remodel and repair. Uh, Double or triple that number of remodel, repair, and basic maintenance if, say, you had kids or pets. Um, it. What if we could knock off a massive percentage of that dollar amount? As much as like 60% or greater. You know, well then let's get straight to it. You know, um, so one of the first things you're gonna need when it comes to you know developing a homestead, and what a homestead and farmstead basically is, it's it's a property in which that your home is more self-sufficient than the average one. We really think of livestock, we think of farms, gardening, big tractors up on the field. But that isn't necessarily what you have to do. This isn't just for somebody who wants to start a homestead and live secluded in the woods. It's not for somebody who wants to become a farmer. You may be a nurse at the hospital. You may really enjoy the job that you do. You might be in a band. You might uh, work for a factory or a company or corporation that provides great benefits, and you wouldn't dare leave that. It's definitely something that you could generate and leave to your family. Your family's very dependent on it. All that. So, all these are tips and things that you can put even around your own home, apartments even. Uh, so, but when it comes to actually developing your own property versus buying that $200,000 house, um, let me, well, let's just say this savings is not going to come free or easy. You can work to buy your groceries, right? Hours of the week to cover your grocery expense. Or you can learn something more that's fun and creative, a good activity for you and the family. You can work less and get twice the amount. Now, we need several fairly basic things as human beings. We need shelter, we need water, we need food, we need medicine, and we need morale. All intrinsic to self-sustainability. But what goes into it? So, we know housing, but before we even get into that, we all want to build our own home. That sounds cool, right? But there's a little bit of work that goes into it beforehand, and that's purchasing land. You need land before placing anything. Problem is, how do we find the right type of land that is right for us? Excuse me. Well, to begin, you go to the country. It's really not something you want to look at really towards the city. You can find something that's a little bit out of the ways, but not completely far out. But the further out you do go, you will see a dramatic fall in the pricing. But you want to. The problem is, well, when you go to the country, you're going to want to look for what's called unrestricted land. And that way you have a significantly reduced number of codes, laws, regulations, and restrictions that are stopping you from doing what you want on your own property, which, mind you, you're going to be paying for and paying taxes on and living to your, the beneficiaries. So remember, unrestricted land. But before there's other factors you need to review. You want unrestricted, partially agricultural land. You want it outside of the 100-yard flood zone. You want no easements on that land. You want a clean title. You want to find out what your neighboring properties are being used for. If you're the real holistic type and the real organic and you're about the air that you breathe and everything, you definitely don't want a refinery or some type of industry next to you. If you really want the peace and the quiet and the simplicity, you don't want a heavy equipment storage company for heavy equipment diesel vehicles, 100 yards away. It'd be mighty inconvenient. You want to learn about mineral rights. You can buy the land, but there might be quartz or oil or anything on that property, and you would not own it off gate. You wouldn't, just own it because you paid for the land itself. You really have to look into being able to own everything on that land. You want to see if the undeveloped land works for you. You may want to utilize a wooded forest plot. Or you may want to utilize, you may just want a blank field. Where find what sits best for you, and you really want to find out where it sits from the main road. And you want to know what all is on that property. If there's roads, trails, anything already on that property. You want to learn the history of that property. It would be really unfortunate for that property to have been used for something 100 years ago, and God forbid you, one of your children, or somebody stumbled upon that not knowing it. And it'd just be something that you really wouldn't prefer. You want to know what all's on the property, You want to know if there's springs, if there's creeks, rivers, ponds, waterways. The wildlife in the area can be a big one, These are all factors you want to look into when it comes to finding the land that best suits you. Now, once you find that land, now we're going to get into actually developing the main piece of that land that's going to be doing the most, the house. All right. So the best route to go, the most affordable, simplistic, and easiest to maintain, even for the inexperienced, is the shed home. And no, I'm not knocking Lowe's or Home Depot, because I shop there all the time. I absolutely love them. I think most of us do. But we're not talking about the sheds that they have. The shed conversions homes are the ones that look more almost like miniature barns, the real elongated buildings. Here in right outside of Roanoke, Virginia, I believe it's in Blue Ridge. We have a wonderful, wonderful family-owned place that works with an Amish community known as Landscape Solutions. And you can look up their website. They are absolutely amazing. And a lot of them they're already built beyond the grade of sheds. You know, they come with electrical, but like Landscape Solution does everything but put plumbing in them. They can panel them, they can insulate them for you, everything. Now, shed conversion homes have really blown up in popularity as the economy has continued to fall and fail the majority. Even the middle class and upper middle class are abandoning their $500,000 properties to live in these $30,000 to $70,000 structures that will buy you the same square footage as $150,000 to $200,000 house. Yet you have companies that will allow you, like Landscape Solutions, will fully customize these homes. I mean, we're talking about you know, you have different styles, the barn, the cottage, all kinds of different styles. And even with those styles, you know, you can choose the size, the width, the length, the roof type, the siding type, roof color, siding color, window color, the number of windows, the style of windows, the locations of the windows. They allow you to design the inside, and usually, you know, when we inquired about ours with Landscape Solutions, the son who works there is just one of the coolest, nicest gentlemen you will ever meet and do business with. And he even said, you know, there's been a few times where people have wanted to divide because it's all one single room, and they've wanted to divide it up because they want to turn it into a 2-bedroom home. They want bathrooms, closets, and he's actually came in and divided up and built the walls, insulated and paneled those as well on the inside. And you know, the floors, you can customize the floors, customize the paneling, choose your form of insulation. Most of these buildings, most of these conversions, the cool part about it is just about anyone can afford it, because regardless of the overall price, most of these require a minimal down payment or none at all, little to no credit checks, and even like Landscape Solutions, they do free delivery up to 50 miles from their location. And they bring it in, they'll turn it in the they have a motorized mule where they'll jack it up and move it in the direction that you want it to be able to fit it into narrow and tight squeeze places. You know, you want it in between these two massive, beautiful oak trees, and they'll slide that motherfucker right on in there for you. It's amazing what they do. It's completely worth considering because you have several different types of conversion homes. There's people who have built pallet houses. They do the steel shipping container homes. All types of different style homes. Industrial piping, the 10-foot industrial piping. You see custom conversion homes made out of that. So if you go to check out my website, which I'll leave a link for in the title and in the description, there's actual pictures that you can refer to. And these have front porches, banister balusters, steps. You can get the fold-out doors. You can get them to where they're so large you have the garage built in. The one that we initially chose, had the giant garage fold-out door, floor-to-ceiling doors that opened up just to give an open concept to the house, you know? And it's amazing. You can build a simple deck on it, and it's beautiful. So that's one thing that I encourage people to do. And so then that brings us to our next topic. Before you go to hook up to the grid for electricity and power wise, before you go spend out $1,000 to $10,000 on a generating system, there's let's get right before we get into that. Let's talk about water. A self-sustaining water source is amazing. It's imperative for your homestead. Sources can come from many different ways. It can be a pond, something on that property, natural springs, all sorts of deals. The two that I recommend to really look into is rainwater collection and filtration, and well water with filtration. Wells will need an electric pump, and usually nowadays 5 figures to have one dug, unless if you're in the position where you can strike water before the 80-foot deep mark. I believe it's about 80 foot. You might have to research into it, but you can actually hand bang the well by shoving the piping down and having a weight that actually drops down on it. And you can YouTube videos of people hand banging their own wells on the property, and it's amazing. They don't use a pump, so you do have the actual, thing. But nowadays, thanks to modern plumbing and various new technologies, those still fly. You can still have the running water where you can cut your sink on. You don't have to go all the way out there and cut that pump on. Deep wells, though, they do need. It's better to have a pump, which is usually ran by electricity. So that may not be so appealing, depending on the route that you're going. So let's jump over to rainwater. Rainwater, for one, it's already, if you're going to be growing gardens, plants love rainwater more than anything. So you're going to want to collect it anyways. You're going to have gutters on your home more than likely, and a downspout, and all that water is just going to pour on out into the dirt. So may as well stick some cheap 50-gallon drums that you can buy for $25, $50 a piece. Amazon, I have a chapter on my website that gives links to great water collection and filtration systems to put under your downspout. Some look like barrels and different things that are extremely decorative, cute and pretty for your yard. Some of them are fold up and easily collapsible and portable. And so you can use them for various purposes when they're empty or whatnot. And yeah, so though the water is limited, it's still if rationed properly, will give you plenty of water. The more you collect, the better. And I have diagrams on my website in regards to this topic in particular that show simplistic water filtration systems that, if you're savvy enough, you can build yourself. But I do recommend skipping a few steps, get to pretty much some of the basics, and have those installed. So then we talk about electricity. You don't need as much as you would think. Nowadays, items are designed and intended to limit the budget and the power that you consume. And you would be very surprised how little you actually need. So, for instance, a 60-inch flat screen in my home requires about 160 watts. And there's a little bit more that goes into this, but I'm going to cover just kind of the basic general, the basics of it. Most light bulbs are about 60 watts. And then you look at whatever little minor things, really basic, and you want the simplicity. So we're talking about limiting the amount of power that you'll be consuming. So on average, say the bedroom would require about 3 to 400 watts to power. We're not counting with air control. So no, not talking about heat, not talking about AC. We're not talking a bunch of ceiling fans and excessive lighting, things of that nature. Simplistically, we're looking at about 3 to 400 watts, right? Um, and so Amazon, again, I include links for these as well, have what you need. Basic solar kits that you install yourself. They're very easy to learn to understand, and they allow you to learn everything you need to know about providing your own power. And so that will allow you to do your own maintenance. It's cheaper than having a professional company come in and install them, and it's not as difficult as you would assume it to be. Um, but the sun doesn't always shine. So you're definitely going to want to have power storage units or batteries. These are similar to the car batteries that you're going to find in your vehicles. Find out the batteries that are compatible with the particular kits that you order. Find out how much they store, and bear in mind that excessive heat and excessive cold does determine on how long those batteries will hold that power. Particular weather and particular environments will drain that power out of the batteries as they sit. So that's something you do want to do some research into and bear into mind. Um, Now, remember, we skipped over the factor of heat. And heat requires a lot more power, really, a lot more power usage than anything else. Um, and solar, really, unless you have a lot of it, really isn't your best option. Because no matter how much you collect, it's still going to be drained out very quickly. And in the winter months, especially with smaller homes, you're going to be using a lot. So I've always been a huge fan of the wood stoves, and honestly, they're one of the best options to go. Um, for a large home, you're looking at a $600 wood stove, but even less depending on the kind of conversion home that you go with. A good chainsaw, a good $400 chainsaw, and an axe. $1,000 later, and a forest for your property, and boom, you have free heat after an hour of chopping per week, versus what you would work several hours at your job to cover the expense for your heat if you were hooked up to the grid. Um, so now you could still work out enough solar to collect that, say for 1,000, 2,000, to rid some of that requirement. It's all something you can do over time. As you make the money, you can invest it back into your property and slowly build that up. Um, but you really just have to determine, based on your home and your budget and the time you're going to be there, what works best for you. Again, if you refer back to my website, it's going to have several different diagrams, very, very simplistic, off-grid solar power and solar kits, as well as links for you to click on to the individual kits that I personally, me and my family have used and had great luck with, that I truly do recommend. It is also going to show you diagrams as far as installing a wood stove and what all really goes into that and what all is needed with that. So next on the list, we get into gardening. Now, I cover a little bit about this in other chapters, but essentially you need a garden and some basic livestock. I have several diagrams on my site that show you various vegetable layouts and sufficient layouts for your garden and your livestock enclosures. This comes down to working a property as small as, I have diagrams on there to show you layouts to utilize as small as a quarter of an acre of land to have a fully self-sustainable property in just a very, very small amount of space. And quite frankly, when you utilize all this and you put it together, it actually turns out visually very appealing. It turns it into a very beautiful property, and it's really it's awe-inspiring. It's very nice. Now, these days, also bear in mind that you can order whole selections of seeds in sets online for next to nothing, which I also include links to. And so now comes time for livestock. Our beloved Tractor Supply, who we love so much, has most throughout the summer months has baby chickens for sale for as low as $2.50 a piece. They have several types, but I definitely recommend limiting the number of roosters or male chickens due to the fact that you don't really need but one. And when you have more than one, they tend to fight and they'll even kill each other. So definitely limit the number of roosters that you really need. Primarily, what you need are the female chickens. But a single female chicken layer will lay anywhere from 1 to 3 eggs per day, just depending on how they sustain their dietary. Some breeds get fatter, some are more lean, but most notably, they're cheap, they're productive, and they're self-caring. Free-range chickens, where you don't have them behind a small enclosure all day, all the time, they don't roam far. They stay in that specific area that they're familiar with, their own area. They won't roam very far, and they always return to the coop at sunset. This protects them from a lot of coyotes and possums and anything that may try to prey on them. Living without the cage means they will feed themselves. Not only does this save you cost on animal feed, but they eat ticks, chase off mice, and a lot of times they eat bugs. And a lot of times they can be fun to watch and cheap entertainment for both adults and children. They really are funny little animals, and they're really great to have. Now remember, on your homestead, it's always nice to keep a cat or two. They kill mice, they kill snakes, but bear in mind that they will also kill your chickens. They have a potential to mess with your chickens. One technique that I personally learned to use is when we had the cats, we would actually tether them outside on long leashes. And within that area where we had the baby chicks, we had parakeet cages. We would turn sideways to give more square footage for them and get the cats used to the chickens. That way, when they ended up growing up and were running around on their own, they were used to them, and they knew that they were friendlies. The cats didn't mess with them. Except for chickens they love cat food. So they will try to eat your cat's food. I definitely recommend keeping that separate from them. And that can kind of piss off the cats. Cheapest chicken coops, the cheapest ways to set up chicken coops, you can slap together old pallets and screw them together. It makes it really easy for you to clean them, for you to insulate them. And the same goes for dog houses and pig pens and goat enclosures. Goats, by the way, if you have the right ratio of goats to land size, you'll definitely may not need to buy that $2,000 riding mower, because the goats keep the grass short. They really are living lawnmowers. Sheep too. Though you may still, obviously want a little push mower or weed eater, battery power, especially if you have the solar, or even non-electric or gas, the old school push mowers that have the spiral blades, especially if you're able to keep those blades sharp over time. Sheep, especially, speaking of sheep, also have many, many cool features that you can utilize for your homestead. So like their wool, besides making clothing, is the number one best kind of insulation that you can get. It lasts the longest, it stays clean, it's organic and healthy for all humans and animals. So sheep wool insulating any kind of pallet structure, it's a great way to go, and I highly recommend. I also recommend you can get a few pigs. They're a little bit more of a job to feed, but all in all, they're worth it. You can find them out in the country, from private buyers for 50 to 80 bucks a piece. Not too bad. Another one, honeybees. Honeybees make amazing honey, which is absolutely great for your health. It's great for your immune system, great for allergies, great for inflammation, for so many different health issues. But it's a hobby itself, and it is so fun and fulfilling to get out there and raise bees. So remember, with many different kinds of livestock and animals, there comes a point where feed might end up becoming a cost. So you definitely may want to consider leaving a spot in your property for growing lots of oats, wheats, and grains and things of that nature. Remember, chickens and a lot of these animals, they will eat scraps that come out of your kitchen, and not only can you compost that to make it into soil, but you can also give it as extra treats, snacks, and meals for your animals. And these animals are going to provide morale, routine, food, and material for your property. But there is one thing, that I can say is, as you produce more, it's going to be more work to it. So I don't suggest you go and get 20 of a certain kind of livestock, because you're going to overwhelm yourself. Start off small. Get your 5 chickens, get a goat, get a pig, get your 2 cats or something, and really, really go off of that. Cattle, beef cattle, they're a whole nother. That's a whole nother category. It becomes a little bit more expensive, and it becomes a little bit more of a responsibility. So definitely do your research in regards to the types of livestock before you go out and go stir crazy. And this is just some of the information that goes into developing your homestead. It truly will provide you and your family insurance. It'll provide you so much. One, getting back to the basics of who we are as human beings and where we come from, and being fortunate enough that nowadays we're able to utilize modern technology and the collection of so much knowledge and science, and that happens to all be compiled right on the internet. You can Google and find the answer to practically any question you have. It makes it so much more easier than what it was 400 years ago, when our ancestors had to depend on farming the land. And if they screwed up the crops, or their animals fell under disease, it literally was a life and death situation. Whereas today, things have adapted and changed to where we have a little bit more leeway, where some of those things now don't just become vital, but they become recreational, and we're actually able to enjoy doing what we're doing. It's not all this pressure on us as we do it. And this is just one of the many reasons, I say, you can go and buy one of these properties and it be $300,000, or you can develop one of your own for under a third or a quarter of the price. Our first property was, we did it for under $60,000. I mean, it's incredible how cheap that it actually is to do this, and how cheap it is to maintain. And when you build it all yourself, and when you develop everything yourself, you need less help afterwards. So if something stops working, if something gets old and dilapidated, or needs to be fixed, or needs to be done, you already know how to do this. So it makes it that much less of a job. And or, say you're now older in age and you're incapable of doing that particular job. You know exactly what it takes, and so paying somebody to actually come in and do it, they can't up the price and try to act like, oh, this is this complicated job and you got to do this and you got to do that. It's like, no, dude, I know how to do this. I know what it takes. I know what I should be paying you. And it's intrinsic. It's important that you learn to do all these different things, because at the end of the day, even if you're not developing your own property, your homestead or farmstead, you could be living in an apartment. you could have a house in the city, and if there's room to get a garden in the ground, in pots, or hanging out, out windows, or growing it in your window seal. These are all terrific things that you can do, and you save a tremendous amount of money. You enjoy yourself, you have a good time, and at the end of the day, it's fulfilling, and you'll truly enjoy it. I truly hope that this video has been inspiring, and I do hope that you take something from this. Do not just use this as a tool to help you and use it like a recipe book. Follow up with all the various videos, books, and education systems that are out there now to help people do these kinds of things. The more homework you do on this, the way more efficient you're going to be when you actually go to execute the plan itself. And please make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Anything you'd like to add, criticize, or dive into more detail with, I'm sure there are well experts or solar experts and plumbing and electrical experts, people who do livestock farmers, that I hope see this, and I hope they really get to add a little bit more in the comments and really be able to just add to the information that's available on this platform for the viewers. So with that being said, happy trails, happy farming, and y'all take care. Stay tuned for the next video.